One of the most interesting comments that I got on that video was, and I got it in the live stream and I got it on the video itself, was that the reason that Games Workshop got rid of Hordes is because Horde armies were overpowered. And I saw that comment and I was like, nah. No. So, Horde armies are not overpowered in any way, shape, or form. But competitive players do hate Horde armies. So what I want to dive into a little bit is, why are Horde armies a problem for competitive play and competitive players? All right, and why they're not overpowered. So, firstly, they're not overpowered because there's actually very few examples of Horde armies ever actually winning tournaments. I mean, there was the one example that someone might, the two examples that someone might point to is at the beginning of 10th edition, you had Black Tide. They had that Black Tide guy who went to WTC and he won like 8 games and technically came first in WTC, but that completely ignored the fact that he was playing in a teams format. And so he just was able to be paired into like 8 rounds, whatever it was, 8 games of people that just weren't good into his Black Tide. It was his team did very, very well. I think his team won the whole thing and he technically came first because he basically just got to stat check 5 to 8 people. I'm not sure how many rounds he played. And that's why Black Tide got nerfed into the ground. It was basically massively taken out of context. And then you also had the World Eater, like Jackal spam, which almost became a problem, but then they nerfed the crap out of it. And then you've got Recon Guard now, but Recon Guard's winning an event here and there. But I do think it's important to point out, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I do think it's important to point out that the areas where Recon Guard is winning seems to be in more shooty orientated metas. And that makes a lot more sense. As someone who plays on a lot of UKTC terrain and a lot of WTC terrain, Recon Guard really struggles on that format because it's much more assault orientated. And I'll never forget when I showed, the American crowd on this channel what WTC terrain was. And they were like, wait, what? Like, how the hell are you meant to play on that kind of stuff? And I went, yeah, it's really, really dense. WTC terrain is designed for close combat, for melee armies. And competitive players love melee armies. I mean, we all love melee armies, but competitive players love melee armies. And there's a reason for it. It's because melee armies basically get free movement. And movement wins games. So if you build a terrain pack around that, and you know that that's what the terrain is designed for, and someone else doesn't, it gives you an inherent advantage. So anyway, point is like Recon Guard is doing better in shooting metas, but it doesn't do as well in more melee orientated metas. But the point is that you can't ever, even like historically, it's quite hard to actually point to any time when a true Horde meta has existed. I mean, I'm sure you could go back to like 6th edition. No, not even 6th edition. I've played all the editions, man. There's never really been a time when Horde has been OP. Not in any meta-defining way. There's been a Johnny Rambo list here, wild card player there. But generally speaking, Horde armies have never been... Horde armies generally, like on a large scale, have never been overpowered. What Horde armies can do is win games. What Horde armies rarely do is win tournaments. So saying that Hordes are overpowered, in my opinion, is fundamentally wrong. Horde armies are, at the end of the day, a skew list. The skew being, I have brought more bullets than you have got. I've brought more bodies than you have got bullets. But this is 40k. So, honestly, trusting in that philosophy it's not a great, not great. Because the game is hyper lethal. It's never been more lethal. The volume of attacks, the volume of incidental firepower, units just evaporate left, right, and center. That's been something that's ever increasingly like gone on. Just the lethality of the game is through the roof, and the whole thing about how is the game more lethal when GW said at the beginning of 10th they were going to make the game less lethal. And anyway, the point is the game has never been more lethal. So the idea of bringing more bodies than bullets is not going to work. But not on a large scale. You might get a few people with it, and you might win a few games with it, but generally speaking, Horde armies, it's not as simple as that. Horde armies just have their own playstyle. One of the advantages they have is numbers and is quantity, but you have to be able to leverage those numbers. And if you just throw your bodies away, then actually you do end up just getting tabled. I found this when I ran my Tyrannid, I would say unending swarm, but it does end. So when I ran my Tyrannid swarmless, there was over 8 competitive games where I ran it, I got tabled half of the time because I was moving them around in movement trays, and so to save time. But the issue with that is that rather than stringing one squad out at the front and then only taking 20 casualties, I'd move like 2 or 3 blobs up in these movement trays and then lose all 3. So you can't, you can make a carpet of bugs, but you still have to adhere to your Horde tactics, which is, screening and all this kind of stuff. So, and then I found that with, interestingly, I found that with Recon Guard when I ran it at Manchester GT, which was a little while ago, I will admit, but the detachment's not changed that much, and if anything, the meta's just got more lethal around this, so the situation's not got better. Recon Guard, I had like 20-man blobs just disappear like that. And I know Dark Elder have changed significantly now, but I'll never forget when Lilith went in and just blended like 20 Kriegers single-handedly. It was like, oh, okay. Now that is an out-of-date example, but I also found it against other armies as well. And so what I found it with that is I was trying this whole thing of putting like loads and loads of points in reserve and trying to do like a big outflanking, and I found that all I was doing is losing half my army in the first couple of turns, and then my other half would come on and it was just in a bad place. So Horde armies really aren't overpowered, and they really aren't about just bringing more bodies than bullets. That's how a lot of people sort of see it at a very surface level. But those are people that don't, and those are people that are either getting into it for the first time and they have this notion of, I'm going to bring more bodies than the enemy could possibly kill, and ignorance is bliss. And the other side is it's people armchair generaling and going, well, the problem is that you can't physically kill them all. Oh, that's boring. And it's like no, because running a Horde army, it just has a different set of tactics. Running multiple small units and running a more elite play style is something that a lot of is what a lot of competitive players like to do. That's the preferred way that competitive players like to go. But running a Horde army is so much more than just bringing an overwhelming number of wounds. So. And let me just say something here. And anyone who says playing against Horde armies is boring, honestly, you're fucking boring. Okay? I'm just going to say it. You're fucking boring. Okay? I will say this. One of the reasons why I think 40k feels so stale these days is because Horde armies aren't in it. Because when you play against Hordes, everyone has a good time, whether you win or whether you lose. Okay, do you want to know where I won one of my best sporting events? It's when I ran 365 conscripts in 9th edition. Every single opponent that I played against loved it. I had multiple people who didn't know me shake my hand after the game and be like, that was, even when I won, even when I beat them, shake the hand and say, that was one of the best games of 40k I've ever played. That was so much fun. Everybody loves playing Hordes. Why? Well, it's twofold. Firstly, even if you lose the game against the Horde army, you still get to kill loads and loads of stuff. So you get to look down at the enemy dead pile and be like, wow, look how many guys I killed. And I get to dig, and I get to, as the Horde player, I get to be like, yeah, man, look how much you fucking killed, you know? So only boring people don't enjoy that. They go, oh, well, it didn't really matter anyway in the end. And it's like, oh, well, fuck off. Come on, you're just being salty at that point. Everyone loves playing Horde armies because even if you lose, you end up killing loads. And if you and also look at films like Starship Troopers and Helms Deep. Who, you know, because Starship Troopers, you can say, well, you're a guard player, of course you love that. Look at Helms Deep. Why is Helms Deep never been beaten? Well, there's many reasons, but why is Helms Deep so iconic? Because it's so few against so many. When you play against a Horde army, you're the main character. I'm running the hordes of goobers, and you're the main character. So either you get to enact a glorious last stand where you know you take as many of the enemy with you as possible, or you get to reenact the scene of charging into the heart of the enemy formation, and no matter the overwhelming odds, you purge them. It's like, why in Helldivers 2, for example, is the bug front nearly always more popular than the bot front or the Illuminate front, unless there's some really big story thing going on. Putting the story campaigns aside for a moment, on a day-to-day level, why is that the case? Because people love playing against unending swarms of bugs. And this is true. Look at Hell's Reach as an example of one of the best Warhammer books ever made. It's because it's a last stand against the overwhelming orc hordes. So, and then look at Simple Logic. Great point. Speaking on this topic, you should play Horde mode battle report, maybe with the custom Mordian attachment. Who remembers about a year ago when Horde mode popped off on YouTube? Tabletop Tactics covered it. Loads of people covered it. Completely popped off. Everyone loved it because people enjoy playing Hordes. Hordes are fun. And now that Hordes have gone away, the game it's missing something, isn't it? It's part of this splinter in the mind. Everyone can't decide why they're getting fucked off with 40k, but not everyone. A lot of people can't figure it out because a lot of the reasons why they're saying that they're annoyed with 40k doesn't make sense because these things have always happened. The game's always changed, units have come and gone, so on and so forth. Do you know what it is? Horde armies are like bees. But years ago, all the bees were disappearing because of pesticides and stuff like that. And nobody thought they were that important. They were like, fuck it, just spray, baby, spray. Okay? And then, when all the bees started dying, all the crops started failing, ecosystems started going to shit, and people realized that actually the bees were really important to the ecosystem. So now there's loads and loads and loads of environmental initiatives, which I'm no bleeding heart hippie, but even I say that there are some environmental initiatives that are actually really are worth it. And saving the bees is absolutely worth it. 10 out of 10, no questions asked. Take my money, give it to the bees. Okay, so no problem with that whatsoever. And it's like this in Warhammer 40k. The Horde armies were the bees of the 40k ecosystem. And by removing them, things started to go off. Things started to go wrong. You know, nothing is more iconic than seeing 180 orc boys pouring across the battlefield. 240 orc boys pouring across the battlefield. Nothing is more iconic than an unending wave of tyrannies. But you never see unending swarm. You never see green tide. You never see any. You never see proper horde armies anymore. It's all even Gene's Cult when they were doing horde shit. It was still really MSU bollocks going on, wasn't it? It just looked like it was like a pseudo horde army. But 150 blokes isn't a horde army. Not 150 like T3. Nah. So. Horde armies are fun. So that whole side rant wasn't even really anything to do with the video, but I thought it was important to point out that Horde armies are really fun to play against, and since they've gone away, I think it's like the bee's leave of the ecosystem. Now, why are Horde armies being purged from Warhammer 40k? All right. Why do win at all costs, truly competitive? Why do no, that's an exaggeration. Why do properly competitive mindset players hate Horde armies? Well, it's the same reason we don't have the Chaos Boon table anymore, or orcs don't have things like Squabble, and why there's less and less randomness. It's why you have... It's why there's so much focus on things like Math Hammer. So yeah, timeouts and low scoring, not true at all. I've never had a problem with playing Horde armies within time. And I know it's totally... Horde armies don't take any more... Suddenly with all the Horde armies going, is everyone playing and finishing their games with loads of time to spare? Or is everyone still running out of time? Turns out Horde armies weren't the problem. Not even slightly. Everyone still has to bloody talk out turn 5, even when they're not meant to. Okay, you have to. So, everyone always... we've had like 3 people send in tournament reports. We've had like 3 people send in tournament reports this week already. It's only Tuesday. And every single one of them has been like, and I didn't get past turn 3 on this one particular game. And no one was running fucking Horde army. So no, sorry, Ed. Bollocks to you. Poo to you with knobs on. I'll tell you why they don't like it. Because Horde armies are a wild card. Horde armies are the curveball. Horde armies can't be factored into your calculations. I need to calculate. If I do this exact math hammer, then I'll be able to win this game. That's... Horde armies are an uncertain element. How the fuck have we got to a point where it feels like every motherfucker in the room is hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, winning on 2s, rerolling 1s? 40k has, in 10th edition, never had less randomness in it. Never had less randomness. It's never had less certainty. Why are things so lethal? Why do things like trading and shit exist? Because the idea is, well, I can calculate that this unit... Why do you have fixed points? Because the idea is, well, I can take this unit, which I know is going to cost this much, and I can send it into your unit, and because of the volume of attacks, I know that your unit is just going to evaporate, and then you can then hit me back, and blah, blah, blah. It's all about the calculations, the numbers, Mason. What do they mean? It's always like, it's like the architect just sat there in the room like concurrently, concordantly, ipso facto, I'm your boss, all this kind of shit, right? It's... Competitive players don't like uncertainty. They want things to go exactly the way they expect it to go every single time. They want predictability. And Horde armies fundamentally are unpredictable. Because whilst it's because they play very differently. They play very differently. It's not... While there is an element... I know I said it's not about bodies and bullets. There is still an element of that. You, as the Horde player, need to manage it but then you can leverage your extra numbers. But it's not a simple case of just marching forward. You can absolutely make things about, I'm going to lose so many men a turn and all this kind of stuff. But you as the Horde player have to manage that. You can't be stupid about it. So absolutely there's an element of it, but it's more skillful than just marching everyone forward to inevitable victory. So because there's this element, it's like knights. You know, knights, if you just don't bring enough anti-tank, it can be a problem. Horde armies, if you don't bring enough anti-infantry, it can be a problem. So that's why all these sort of, that's why, I said earlier, niche armies aren't welcome in 40k anymore. Because niche armies provide uncertainty. Now, if you're an actually, but here's the thing, if you're an actually good player with an actually good list, then a Horde army isn't a problem. A Horde army is not a problem. Because as we said, Horde armies don't consistently win tournaments. The armies that consistently win tournaments are elite armies. Playing a Horde army is a sucker's game in many ways. But what happens is the Horde army can ruin your run. Whether it ruins your run because it forces you to lose a game, and then suddenly, if you just hadn't faced that Horde army, you knew you could have gone 5-0, but now you've lost like round 3 and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to turn up to day 2. Or maybe you don't, maybe you still beat the Horde army, but the problem is now you only get 80 points rather than 90 points, and now you're out of contention to win to make it to the top 8 or to in a super major or something like that. Even though you were never going to get there, but you like to think you could have got there. Do you know what I mean? So this is it. The reason why people complain about Horde armies is not because you can't table them. It's not because they're overpowered. It's not because it's because they're a wild card. And players who are competitively minded don't like wildcards. They like to know what they're up against and what it's going to do. Well, at least that's what I think. This is what I think. But, yeah. What do you guys think? Horde armies are like, fuck you, my objective. Yeah. We aren't there yet, but yeah, it's getting bad. I mean, we are pretty much getting to the point where there's no Horde armies around. But yeah, I think that was in. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Redfield, 32, Jurgens, Miasma, Try Again, Bragg, RJ, Scorpion, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Nicholas Walsh, John Stubbs, Guardian, Varney, Sword, Fish Trombone, Picklock the Forged. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.